Joining me now is Democratic Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen. He sits on the Foreign Relations, Appropriations, and Budget Committees. Senator, first, your reaction to the president saying he believes there will be a conclusion to the war in Ukraine, in his words, hopefully soon. Your reaction to that and the call overall?
Well, Allie, good to be with you. Look, nobody wants to end the war in Ukraine more than the Ukrainian people. I mean, thousands of their countrymen have died. They also want to protect their sovereignty. So I'm all for negotiations, but you don't begin a negotiation the way the Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth did on his recent trip to Europe, by unilaterally giving up all sorts of leverage and undercutting the Ukrainian people. So yes to discussions, yes to negotiations, but no to surrendering all the leverage we have before you even begin that talks. That is, the President Trump may call himself the great negotiator. That is a terrible approach and throws the Ukrainian people under the bus from the beginning.
And Trump, in this lengthy Truth Social post, says that he's informing President Zelensky of the conversation that he had with Putin, in his words, right now. So, of course, that's something the White House press corps will be following up on. But I want to pivot also to the business of the Senate today, because all of President Trump's nominees are seemingly at this point on track to be confirmed. At the same time, you've got Mitch McConnell as the lone no vote against a Republican president's nominee in Tulsi Gabbard. What does that tell you about the Senate that you're operating in today? How is it different than the one that you left at the end of the year and came back to in January?
Well, I've been extremely disappointed in Senate Republicans. Not surprised, unfortunately, but disappointed because they have been giving essentially a blank check to all sorts of unqualified nominations. And it indicates sort of the liberating quality of no longer being the head of the Senate Republicans when Senator Mitch McConnell casts these votes against Republicans, doing what he understands is the right thing. But we don't see any of his colleagues, or very few of them, following him. And I think the American people need to be watching, because this Trump cabinet is just chock full of people who are unqualified for these positions.
But I wonder if we can't merge these two topics, the realities of the Senate right now and the way that McConnell has vowed to continue focusing on things like Ukraine, and the pending negotiations between Russia, Ukraine, and the United States. Do Senate Democrats potentially see an ally there, however unlikely that sentence might be, as they go forward and watch that unfold?
Right. Up to now, there's been enough bipartisan support in the Senate to support the Ukrainian people. We saw that during the last year, and Senator McConnell was among them. But since Trump was reelected, I fear that a lot of that support is disappearing, because people who held one view before Donald Trump was elected are now kowtowing to Donald Trump while he's in the White House. This is a very dangerous, slippery slope for the country when people surrender their votes and their responsibility to one man, two men actually, Donald Trump and now Elon Musk.
You bring me to my next question, because in your home state, there are hundreds of thousands of federal workers. I imagine you are hearing from many of them by text, by call, and other methods. Some of your colleagues, like Senator Andy Kim of New Jersey, have said that they're open to shutting down the government in mid-March if Trump continues dismantling the government along with Musk's work. Are you of that same mindset?
Well, I don't want to see a government shutdown. I think what Senator Kim may have been talking about is that Elon Musk right now is in the process of shutting down very important services for the American people. And make no mistake, this has nothing to do with government efficiency. That's what they want the American people to think it's about. But if you start by firing the inspector generals of all these agencies, you're firing the people whose job it is to look out for waste, fraud, and abuse. They've just now filed a lawsuit, and what you're seeing is all of these lawsuits being filed because there's a whole lot of law breaking going on by Elon Musk, and the courts have had to step in, and they're issuing temporary restraining orders. But we'd be much better off if Republicans in the Senate would join us in standing up for the Constitution and against these illegal actions.
I think what Kim may have also been talking about, and this is a conversation I've had with other sources on Capitol Hill, is Democrats basically needing to throw out the old playbook and start playing hardball in this environment that we're currently in. So when you and your colleagues get together for caucus lunches and meetings, what are the discussions on strategy for pushback right now? Because I feel like the American public is asking the question, what are you doing? And I recognize the limitations of being in the minority, but what's the answer?
Well, we are using all of our, powers in the Senate to slow down this train wreck, to work to stop this train wreck, and we will continue to do that. I mean, we're about to go on to the RFK Jr. nomination to be Secretary of Health and Human Services, which would put millions of Americans at risk from this person who doesn't believe in vaccines. We did the same thing with Russell Vogt. We are requiring them to chew up all their time on the clock. At the end of the day, majority nominations have a majority vote. So we will continue to use all the pressure points that we can. We're working with the lawyers who are bringing these cases in court. I've been on the phone with them at length. So whether it's the courts or the Congress or rallies throughout the country with the American people, we have to end the illegal Musk takeover, and I believe that we will, but we have to keep pushing.